Testing 1, 2. Okay. So which one is preferred?
I think yours one better because the guitar is an instrument.
Okay.
Yeah.
我们还有4分钟，时间还没到。Testing 1, 2, testing. Testing 1, 2, A, B, C, D. Sorry. 听不见，外边的声音太大。哦，clear no thanks，可以了，我这里有。如果要的话，OK。Tonight my tea comes from 真如禅寺佛茶，从中国带来的茶叶，佛茶。喝上，我不怕，我比较没有那么敏感。Yeah, amazing.
Original sound for the instrument.
Good.
The instrument.
Yep, got it. Okay. Did Cliff and Sam, did you get my email?
Yeah.
We've got 30 seconds to go. 30秒。Okay. All right. If everyone will take a seat, we will get started. 各位请坐，就坐，我们就开始。Tonight, a little different. We won't do a Qingfa. We did it yesterday. We'll do the first night Qingfa, and then the last night Qingfa and Huixiang. Saving some time. Since our Fa Hui continues. Okay, here we go. All right, let's see now. Good evening, everyone. 大家阿弥陀佛. Can we put our palms together? Let's do Namo Miao Jie Hui Shang Fo Pusa Samye. Ready? 我来一声，大家跟着一声。Namo Miao Jie Hui Shang Fo Pusa. Namo Miao Jie Hui Shang Fo Pusa. Namo Miao Jie Hui Shang Fo Pusa. Homage to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of Wonderful Enlightenment Mountain. Namo Banshi Shijia Moni Fo. Namo Banshi Shijia Moni Fo. Namo Banshi Shijia Moni Fo. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿皆如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound. In 100,000 millions eons is difficult to encounter. Now we've come to see and hear it within our sight and hearing. We vow to fathom the thus come one's true and actual meaning. All right. So we are looking into the potential of a book or a series of teachings, maybe online, maybe a website that introduces the Han Chuan Fojiao, the Buddhist tradition from China, to modern people, particularly people who have the question, 八万四千法门哪一个对我最对机? Out of 84,000 methods of practice, which one is best for me? Last night I gave everybody a layout, an outline, sort of a brainstorm of some of the possible ways we might approach that. And I want to know, first of all, did anybody have any thoughts or ideas? Don't be polite, just toss out any kind of feedback. That would include people online who heard it last night. Anybody got some ideas about just what might be a useful way to present the material? Okay, if you don't, I do. So here, let's take a look. What's the first one? I said we could start with the four bodhisattvas. Use that as a way to structure what we introduce. I said we could use Shifu's four legacies, 四大之业. I said we could use Shifu's 6 guidelines, 6大宗, all these different ideas. I think for the West, this is one place we could start. See if you agree. Where is it? It is Xiao Dao, Xiao Shun. Xiao Dao, Xiao Shun Fu Mu. Why? Why that? So, take a look. See if you agree. Okay, here we go. My story. Part of my being an adolescent passed in waiting for the day that I could drive a car. I was 16 years old. I got the car keys. I could drive away under my own power in the family car, going anywhere without supervision. I was the king of the road, independent. Bye-bye, Mom and Dad. I'm out of here. That was the attitude. Genuinely, that was the attitude. Zoom, away I'd go. Now, when I learned to ride a bicycle, sort of the same. I learned late to ride a bike, and I never quite learned how to swim. In Australia here, swimming is, you swim as soon as you learn how to breathe. Pretty much it's the same thing. You breathe in the water, you breathe outside of the water, same. In Ohio, it was not as easy. I didn't have a swimming pool close by. So, getting away from parents and being my own person was bone deep in young people, that this is called growing up. Separate from your parents. So, the same feeling the first day of college, 100 miles away from Toledo, the town that I grew up in Ohio. I was on my own. I didn't have parents looking over my shoulder. My time with them, in my mind, was done. Now, of course, in my wallet, my parents were helping me with college fee, with the college tuition. So it was only in my mind that I felt I was 自由, free, right? But the point was, I felt no debt to my parents. It wasn't in the culture. I had no obligation. I felt like I was an autonomous unit, 自己的单位, right? Independent, able to make my own way. Now, at age 16, this was, of course, silly, but adolescents are famous for being silly, unreasonable. I wasn't independent. I couldn't make my own decisions. I couldn't support myself, but I understood the cultural paradigm. I could drive the car. I was free to come or go. I had wheels. I didn't answer to anybody. I was not a filial child. 我不是一个懂孝顺的孩子，孝道的孩子。In fact, this idea of filiality, that I had any particular connection to my parents, was foreign. We didn't learn it. My relationship with my parents was okay. I was not a bad, 我不是坏孩子，我没有很坏的，很不好过的父母. No, my parents are not bad. It was not unhealthy. I was number two. I was the middle child. I had a gugu, I had a meme. I wasn't particularly troubled. I was just confused, like many people I knew. Among all my friends, nobody much paid attention to their parents. I hadn't read about it. The idea was kind of namby-pamby. Do you know that word? Wishy-washy. It's kind of limp. If you were filial to your parents, you were kind of a girly boy. Not a red-blooded John Wayne, James Bond, Daniel Boone America. But think about it. What was important was going, mobility, being cool, being tough, the open road. That was what we figured was growing up. I carried this notion through college into my early 20s. My father had passed away already when I met Gold Mountain Monastery and the Buddha Dharma from Chinese culture. The idea that that education, to be a cultured, educated person, began with 知恩报恩, repaying parents' kindness, that was foreign. That idea didn't come in naturally. I'd heard Master Hua talk about sitting by his mother's grave for 3 years. I heard that his teacher, Master Shuya in Empty Cloud, bowed across China to repay his mother's kindness and her death in childhood, and her death in giving birth to him. There, that's what I want to say. Further, I read that the Buddha himself spent a great deal of time attending to his family members, his wife Yashodhara, his son Rahula, his aunt Mahaprajapati, his father at the end of his life. I'd heard that Master Hua's two teachers were both known as filial children, 孝子, 就是长人长智大和尚, because of their extraordinary commitment they showed to their parents, even after they left home and became monastics. Hearing these testimonies from genuine exemplars of Buddhist practice, I started to pay attention to the principle of filiality, not as piety. This word we really want to pay attention to. Filial piety. We want to break that habit of calling xiaodao filial piety. And it was also not obedience. Instead, it was 知恩报恩, recognizing kindness done to me and in my heart, genuinely wanting to find a way to repay. This was a very different idea from obedience, that a child was meant to swallow whatever the adult said, 听话, and to swallow uncritically, to never say no to your parents, without complaint, indeed without thinking. That was not filiality, and even in fact Confucius criticized that. Master Hua was a very independent, hard to tame child. And then here is where, I don't have it here, but here is where I would tell the story of Shifu wanting to bow to his parents, and his mother and father saying, don't do it, just 听话 and you'll be okay. So I haven't told that. So I thought back to all the times that I had, do you all know this word, to sass back? 驳嘴, I guess, in Chinese, right? 驳嘴, to talk back to your parents, is that what it is? How do you say sass back? 驳嘴. 顶嘴, yeah. So my mother would say, we don't use that language, and I would say, I use that language, talk back like that. So I was punished, and often, here's the word, grounded as punishment. I considered this the role of a grown-up man, to be tough, independent, free-thinking, not wimpy, not obedient. Oh, says I've got a virus. That's interesting. Let's get rid of that virus. Okay, that's my virus software at work right there. Antivirus software. Good. Okay, so here is my story. Once I was in high school. I was probably about 16, 17 years old. I could drive. I had what was called a double date. People know a double date. That means you have a date and you're going with another couple. My girlfriend and my best friend and his girlfriend, the four of us, were going to a movie. I was the driver. I was going to borrow the family car and go on a double date. I was feeling very independent, very sassy. My mother said, take out the garbage before you go. 倒垃圾. I said, I'll do it later when it was more convenient to me. She said, do it now. And I said, I'll do it later. She said to me, if you say no one more time, you are grounded. You go to your room. So immediately I said, I'm not going to do it now. I'll do it when I want, whenever I want. She said, you go to your room. I said, you can't make me. She said, that's it. You're grounded. You're not going anywhere this weekend. I said, I'm driving four of us to the movies. I can't be grounded. She said, call them on the phone and tell them it's off. Cancel. Right? So my mother was tough. She's not going to be pushed around by her unfilial son. So what did I do? I went up to my room and I cursed my mother, like a witch saying, I hope you die, I wished her ill. I sent her evil thoughts of harm. Because why? For a young man who's 17 years old or 16, to call up three of his friends and say, I can't come, my mother grounded me. 丢人了, 丢脸了, 丢人. Oh, 没有面子. So that's the worst, right? So in my mind, I sent my mother to hell, and and she caused me pain. This is what you call 忤逆不孝. This is deep unfilial behavior. Thoughts really matter. Thoughts really do matter. And this was a serious breach of cause and effect. It never occurred to me that I could be wrong. I did not connect my refusing to hold my tongue, 收口, after her warning caused the pain. That didn't occur to me. I didn't think she punished you, but she gave you a warning not to do it. You did it anyway. Somehow it was all her fault, right? So now, I now believe that what I resisted was giving her control. As I think back on that moment, I now believe that what I resisted and what caused me to continue to talk back was giving my mother control. I don't know if I want to have this control of my decisions. I wanted my wishes to be the decisive voice. I wanted to be in charge of my schedule. Giving her power over me was unacceptable and repellent. C-A-N-T, repellent? Is that right? Nobody I knew let their parents' wishes take precedence over their latest whim. There we go. Nobody I knew let their parents' wishes take precedence over their own whims. There we go. So, 意思是说什么？不懂孝道. So the point of that is, I had never heard of filiality. If somebody at that point, if Master Hua had come into my face and said, this behavior is wrong, this is unfilial, I would not have connected. So, now at this point, that's the end of my story there. Theory of filiality. Traditional Asian societies, India, China, and wherever their cultures spread, Korea, Japan, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, always taught that virtue is the source of a valuable life, a life that is well lived. Somebody with a virtuous character naturally leads in society. We will gladly follow a person who displays virtue. Virtue, according to the traditional explanation, can be cultivated through attitudes and behaviors. Behaviors. There is a path to virtue. We walk it and our virtue grows. The path to virtue begins with filiality, with repaying parents' kindness. Another way to say it is by addressing our primary relationship, that of the father and mother who gave us birth, we set our life on solid ground. We open the potential of developing all the other virtues. Okay. And here's where maybe add the tree. The idea that when you see a tree, you're only seeing half, the top half of the tree. The bottom half, the roots, are invisible under the ground, but they're what the upper part depends on. So that's an important image. I can add that later. Here we go. I'll borrow the image of a tree. I will use the image of a tree and its roots to explain filiality. The goal of cultivation is great compassion, 大悲, the insight of our interconnectedness with all beings. The first step to reaching great compassion begins with connecting to the roots of our parental bond. It's like a tree that stands tall on its roots, and because of deep roots, the tree can withstand the winds, the winds and storms, and not fall down. People stand on the roots that are our parents, so that we can keep our feet, keep rooted, keep rooted when life storms blow hard. Okay, that's the idea. Roots nourish the tree and allow it to connect with the groundwater that brings nutrients and moisture. The same groundwater nurtures alike all the trees in the forest. No matter the tallest redwood or a pine sapling, all trees alike take their food from the water beneath the soil. So too do people flourish from drinking the water of great compassion. Our birth parents, here we go, are very real flesh and blood, are a very real flesh and blood link to all people on the planet and to all creatures as well. Okay, can I stop right now? I'm reading and I realize this is kind of, technical, but I did write this down so far. I think when I go out into a community and explain this principle to people, that filiality, 孝道, actually takes us all the way to 大悲, 大慈大悲. People, it's hard to prove. If we can prove this point through skillful storytelling or good examples, or if you can find the logical steps, this is a very important point. Because why? 大慈大悲 is really the high water mark of Mahayana, right? To say that we are 同体大悲, not only is it Guanyin Pusa, but that's not in Pali. The Pali tradition, Nanchuan Forjiao, does not talk about great compassion. Tibetan Buddhism, sort of, but the Mahayana brings it right up front. Why do we eat vegetables? Why don't we eat meat? People give us meat, we should eat it, right? No, because we understand that every being loves its life. So because of Datsu Dabe, every day that we eat vegetables, plant-based diet is directly from Dabe. And yet within Buddhism, the only Buddhists who don't eat meat are Chinese, Vietnamese. Sad but true. So Dabe is really our heartbeat. So when we can prove the connection from Xiao Shun, Fumu, all the way to Dabe, that's really important. Okay, so prove this point. How do we do it? Look at the, here is one very important source. Chenpa Puti Shinwan, very important one. People know Chenpa Puti Shin, we lectured it here before, right? Xing'an Dashi. Chenpa Puti Shinwan says, this is the essay on the exhortation to make the Bodhi resolve by a monk at the early Qing dynasty, the end of the Ming, early Qing. His name is Xing'an Dashi. He says there are 10 inyan, 10 reasons why somebody makes the Putishin, Bodhi resolve. And of those 10, number 1 is Bao Fo Zheng, repaying the Buddha's weighty kindness, his serious, heavy-duty kindness to us by speaking Dharma. 2, Bao Fumu En, repaying kindness of parents. 3, Bao Shi Zheng En, repaying the kindness of teachers, both worldly and world transcending, both knowledge and Dharma teachers. Number 4, Bao Shi Zhu En, repaying the kindness of donors who make it possible for us to cultivate without getting a job. Number 5, Bao Zhong Shen En, repaying the kindness of all living beings. So the first 5 out of 10, half of the Putishin, which is where wisdom comes from, are Zhi En Bao, recognizing kindness has been done. So that's a strong proof that to get to great compassion, we have to put our roots down in the ground. We talk about 慈悲水, right? The water of great kindness and compassion. Think about it as groundwater. Every single tree, every gum tree, every jacaranda tree, every tea tree on our property drinks from the very same water underground, right? The water, the groundwater that lets trees grow in every plant doesn't say, oh, you're a tea tree, I'm not going to give you any because I like jacaranda trees. It doesn't say that. It says, you want some? Here, drink all you want. When we repay the kindness of our parents by 就是知父母恩 and 然后佛恩师长财主众生 all those different kinds of kindness, we are going 我们返本还原 we're coming back to our source, to our own source that lets us as trees, say, or people, stand very tall. Every living being, just like every tree in the forest, gets its nurturing from the same place. So this analogy of a tree standing on the planet drinking the water underground is a very good illustration of how, if we can do the first one, 报父母恩, then step by step, all living beings were connecting to the water of great kindness and compassion that nurtures all living beings. Okay? Does that one work? Is that clear? I mean, I don't think anybody has said that specifically, but if people say, oh, datsudabe, how do you get there? You say, when did you call your mom and dad? When did you write a letter to your parents? Including Chujaran, just to say, I'm doing okay, right? Very important. Okay. Now, 不是那么容易. Why? Challenges to filiality. Okay, think about this. Changing times, changing families. Okay, classical filiality, the filiality that we learned from Confucius, from 那个新儒家, from all of the different traditions, were based on families that were extended. 3 generations lived under the same roof. You had a 四合院, right? Where you had many, many children, many siblings living together. Growing up, you knew your grandparents because they lived over there. You knew your aunts and uncles, they lived over there. You knew your cousins, your nephews, because you ate at the same table with them. You went to the same school, you played in the same yard with them. We were knit into the middle of a fabric of relationships. It was very easy to see the reality of your connection with others. So there was someone who, I was trying to find it today, I couldn't find it. The idea that here is an image, right? Let's bring up the Chinese version here. Here is, oh, sorry, one more time. Okay, here we go. So if you are the child, you are here. Boy or girl, you are here. Here's a tree. So this is wood, fire, earth, metal, water. This is your mother, this is your grandparents. This is your mother. This is your father. These are your siblings. These are your aunts and uncles. This is 圆满的孝顺. You developed with all of them to be really completely knit like fabric, like cloth, into filiality. You had every element in your home. Every day you saw them. Every day you interacted with parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles, siblings, right? That was easy to see then. In a culture where every child spends more time with cell phones than with real human family members, filiality is not so easy to relate to now. This this is a challenge to visualizing filiality in the contemporary world we live in. Okay. When a Buddhist meditator realizes Dabei, it begins with tracing his or her first link to parents out to identity with all creatures, Tong Ti, from the first 自己的父母 all the way to Tong Ti Dabei. Explaining that foundation and filiality is hard to accept in the West because why? Parental abuse is common. I have given this lecture on Thursday night at Berkeley several times and had people come up to me and say, are you telling me that I should be grateful to and repay the kindness of my old man who used to beat me every day until I ran away? Or my mother who was jealous of me and threw me out of the house? You telling me I should go say thanks to them, right? Or a woman says, are you encouraging me to continue to relate to a man who abused me when I was 13? How is this Buddhism? I've heard that a lot. More than once. So, question. There were countries in the past where filiality, bao, fumo, and was the standard. India, China. Was there no parental abuse there? Is this something that only began recently in America or in Australia? Answering that question requires history, research, that is beyond our current study. But we can propose some conditions of traditional family life that can make the comparison less useful, which is to say, in an extended family system, 四合院, where aunts and uncles and grandparents lived in the same compound, there was less opportunity for abuse to continue. Further, so in other words, if your father got drunk and beat you, you could avoid him. You could go to grandparents. You could go to uncles. If a man was mistreating his daughter, it came up and he wasn't allowed to continue because people were watching each other. In a culture where in a culture where parents grew up obeying their parents, who obeyed their parents, children would receive no support for thinking independently or believing they had the right to behave or believe beyond the influence of their parents' decisions. How different from me, my story of my growing up. The idea that children have rights and boundaries apart from their parents' wishes is very much a Western notion, and a recent Western notion. After a Dharma talk at the Berkeley Monastery on this topic, I was stopped by a 40-ish man with sad eyes who said, what about people whose parents abused them? Are you suggesting it's good to repay their kindness? If it was me, I would forget all that and put myself in a position to be harmed again. Is that what Buddhists are supposed to do? Okay, so somebody asked me that question directly. Now, if that was asking you, how would you respond from the point of view of filiality? So, is this important? I don't think so. No. I thanked him for pointing out the need for sensitivity to challenging situations. I asked him about his problem, and he told me the details. And after hearing the details, I realized that his pain was deeply rooted. So, does this pain mean, therefore, that the concept of filiality doesn't apply in the West, or that the principle is limited only to loving families? That's the question. 那难道西方孝道不对吗? Right? That's the question we ask. 或者呢，你如果父母对你比较严肃或者不合理的话，那就孝顺跟你没有关的吗？这么一回事吗？不会。I replied to him, having grown up in a dysfunctional parent-child relationship does not mean, let's make that stronger, does not mean that your chance to be filial is gone, is lost, or broken. The pain of a hurtful childhood shows us how important, how essential that root of humanity is to every child. The fact that it hurts so much when it's not necessary that, let's see here. Hold on. This is equally true when a parent is missing or absent. Having no parent to raise during the important early years is as damaging to filiality, let's see here, as having an abusive parent. So 你没有父母或者父母或者父亲或者母亲如果 absent parent 爸爸不在妈妈不在呢，那个然后你要孝道嘛，要孝道报恩一样就说有问题了。Precisely because the filial relationship is so primary to raising a child, making it nurturing is essential to well-being and maturity. I don't know what I'm saying here. Precisely because the filial relationship is so primary, so important. Okay, let's strike that one out. There we go. It hurts so much when it's not working. This shows how necessary to well-being is that first relationship. Is that first relationship? Are those first relationships? Is the C. Are those first relationships? Parents, fumu. I'm not suggesting we should return to a harmful relationship. I'm suggesting that healing the first human relationship in our lives is the first step to virtue and further is basic to realizing great compassion. Okay, let's take a break here. Is everybody following what I'm trying to say here? This is this principle of filiality was first coined when we lived with lots of adults and also with siblings, but mostly we had grandparents. You saw their faces. You saw them, you heard their voices. You saw your parents' parents. How important is that? In a world now where many children are raised with one adult, and then we spend all our time with virtual friends via cell phones. We need to look at it fresh. We need a new look at filiality. If instead you had parents but they were a source of pain, if your father beat you, if your mother scolded you only or was unhealthy, if your parents are divorced, that's really, really key. So I haven't even mentioned that. Divorce. When you're living, if you're living in an extended family, if your parents don't get along, you can spend more time with the house next door, your grandparents, your uncle, your aunt. If we only have 2 adults to begin with as children, and then they split, how do we practice filiality? This is really what we have to look at there. Okay? Now, let's continue here. The root of parents. The roots of our parents, the roots of our parents are our link back to compassion and connection to all creatures. To repair that connection through repaying kindness and nurturing is necessary for us to develop our virtue. Building our virtue is the criteria of true Buddhist cultivation. So, I've come up with a 3-step process. Did I explain it? Let's see here. If I didn't receive kindness from my parents, I need a method to get to the place in my heart that is wounded. The classical formula that worked for thousands of years in Asia says, how does the Xiaojing go? Let's see. 身体发 I can't get it. My parents gave me my body. 我的身体是从父母送给我的。And they took care of me when I could not take care of myself, when I could not take care of myself. I got my food, clothes, shelter, education, and nurturing all the way to adulthood from them. These gifts came to me only through the kindness of my parents. If there was dysfunction, if it was a mixed gift of both, of both kindness and pain, then that means my memory of it is also mixed. Now when I try to address that primary relationship, it means I have to deal with an ache and a yearning in my heart. Perhaps the relationship was far from what I wanted. It was very imperfect. I did not get the parents, the ideal. I was not raised in ideal circumstances. Here we go. First, I have to keep my meditation practice steady and regular. If I am going through this recollection of the rocky beginnings of my relation with my parents, let's see here. Okay, this needs more work. Okay, let's see. Wow, I did a lot here. I didn't realize I have all this. Okay, here's what we'll do. I'm not going to read it. I see this needs a lot of editing. I will explain it because I think this is important. And I built you all up to this place where I think I have a method which faces our current challenge. The current challenge is that Filiality traditionally meant you had many adults around you. Children had adults to hold them, to model for them. Currently, we have a whole new crisis, which is single parents, either the mother or the father. Also, the influence of virtual friends on your phone. Children still need nurturing so that virtue can develop. What do we do? Here is my suggestion. We can heal that primary relationship and set our minds on solid roots like trees as before. How do we do it? First of all, how do we do it in the Dharma? How does Buddhism speak to this situation? That's the question. First of all, we need a practice that connects us safely to the Dharma. A really good one is meditation. Another really good one is bowing. Li Fo. You could also recite the Buddha's name. Amitabha is known as the Tzu Fu, right? Tzu Bei Fu Qin. So those are three practices, but we need a practice so that we have to keep our Dharma practices steady and regular. If I am going to face the ache in my heart because my parents were absent, I need a safe place where I can go every day, related to the Buddha, that it's not a threat. It's a safe harbor, right? Take refuge in your practice. Okay, we are going to touch our filial nature here, not heart but nature, so that my virtue will allow me to go past the hurt, to heal it, and to move on. Painful feelings. We're looking at painful feelings in our hearts. They are going to come up so they can be healed. Let them come up inside our Dharma practice. Meditation practice, my Dharma practice, is a safe space. The emotional feelings that rise have a boundary. I can deal with them without being overwhelmed or frightened. You can open to those feelings, knowing that again tonight I will be practicing with the Buddha again tonight, and I can deal with what comes up, right? See the important part, this first important part. We have to give ourselves a safe space so that as these feelings of my mom and dad caused me pain can arise without overwhelming us, without us feeling like this is too much. You can continue without fear of being overwhelmed when anger, fear, or revengeful feelings arise. What comes up is often anger. What comes up is often a sense of, I want to get back, I want to hit them back. And of course that doesn't work. So how do you allow those feelings to rise so they can be healed, so you can spit them out and transform them? We need a practice. This is our compass, which leads us back to safe ground. Okay, so the first step is to say, I want to heal my filial nature and learn virtue so I can truly experience Bao Fu Mu An. I was wounded by my situation with my parents, but I still want to I want to satisfy that need. So I go back to my relationship because I care, because I want to. My goal is to clean out my confused feelings so I too can be a filial child even though my parents were absent. A filial child sets the early relationship on solid ground, then repays kindness and moves on to the other virtues. When I open to those feelings, what do I find? Children have no power over their parents. They were big, we were small. They made me do things I didn't want to do only because, and feel things I didn't want to feel. Only because of the power imbalance. Parents are big, children are small. They made me because they were bigger. I was afraid, it hurt, I was unhappy. Okay? Now, key, now I have grown. I might even be a parent with children now. I may have my own children, smaller and weaker than I am. I may be doing to them exactly what my parents did to me. I may have frightened other people. Now it's clear that I no longer need to feel powerless. I can let go of the fear. I can forgive the hurt caused me. And I can be, if not happy, at least I can see the unhappiness of my childhood as something in the past. It no longer has the power to obstruct my cultivation and my search for virtue. Okay? I am a grown-up. I can endure I call it natural the natural dukkha of unequal power imbalance. It's natural that children have to take from their parents whatever their parents give them. I see what happened to me was natural and inescapable. I forgive my parents and let it go. I can allow my heart to feel the pain. I can grieve for that child's discomfort. I care that he or she grows beyond the hurt. I listen to his or her pain, and I find a way to make it okay because I care. All right? So this is a do-it-yourself Dharma approach to the current situation where filiality is a true principle, but the basis of filiality is now different because we often grow up without parents. So how do you be filial when your parents are not there, or they were hard on us, bad on us? There is a way. Here's what I'm saying. I want my cultivation, it's not always meditation. I want my cultivation to progress. To do so, I have to let the ache exist. I see its source. I witness the pain, the primary basic suffering built into growing up. I see the discomfort that lives around my tender feelings from childhood. I listen to what it tells me. I see that my parents, as children, were often in the very same situation that they put me in. They may have done to me exactly what they experienced growing up. I may not be the first one to feel pain around my parents, that relationship. The difference now is that I want to move towards the Tao. I want to learn from the Buddha. I want to advance in cultivation. So I listen, I see the built-in conflict, I accept the dukkha, I'm using that word, that's cool, right, the pain, and I move on. I am no longer a powerless child. I am a meditator. I'm a cultivator of the way. A disciple of the Buddha. I want to heal my heart. I forgive my parents, their pain and their confusion. I want my future relationship with them, next life that is, to be based on wisdom and compassion, not on fear and harming. I want any future relationship with them in future lives to be based on wisdom and compassion, not on fear and harm. I want to stand on solid roots of filial virtue and to grow in compassion. This way, I level out my relationship. I allow the memory of me as a powerless child, a victim of their cruelty, to disappear. As that image shrinks, it loses its power. I grow up into an equal in wisdom with my parents. I care, I open, I listen, and the more I hear and see in my mind, the more I care to set my life on its deep roots of filiality and virtue. I yearn to feel my roots set themselves deep in the soil of blessings. And let's see, this is too much here. Let's see here. I want to feel my roots grow deeper in the soil of blessings, and to let the water of compassion nurture my life. I want to experience the connection to all beings whose roots also find their nurturance in the soil of wisdom and the water of compassion. Here we are all equal. Here we find our kinship with all beings in the past and all beings in the present and future. Okay. Let's see here. If it is not possible to heal in this way now, then open and listen. See my parents as people who had parents, who perhaps didn't get trained on how to be good people. They may have been flawed individuals. I forgive them and I move on. Okay? So that's the idea. Let's see. I put this back here. There we go. Care enough to heal it. Open and let the ache be. Listen to my parents' suffering. See the equality and grow in wisdom. I don't want to hurt them back because of the pain they caused me. I continue to send out loving kindness and seek to end the suffering here and now. I will not pass on this pain. Okay, so that is one idea of filiality. There's another piece, which we're out of time now. There's another piece, which is, interestingly, let's see here. One of the challenges in the 21st century to discuss filiality is the question of traditional context, the extended family. Outside of Asia, the traditional style of extended family doesn't exist anymore. Filiality in China and India was 三代同堂, 五代同堂, right? 5 generations under one roof, starting with a set of parents moving down towards children and grandchildren. Now, in Berkeley High School, less than half of the students come from families with both parents at home. Doug Powers, everybody knows Doug. He stopped, but he taught at Berkeley High for 36 years. And he said when he began in Berkeley High, 70% of the students had both parents at home. 36 years later, when he left teaching at Berkeley High and retired, 25% of the families had both parents at home. Within 3 decades, families split up. So the traditional vision of a family is undergoing fundamental changes. So what do we have now? non-traditional families. We need to have the model of filiality that works for the contemporary time. So, okay, so I'm pretty much done for tonight, but this is the start. And I think if we begin our Mahayana education in Mahayana Dharma, Hanchuan Fojiao, if we start here, we've got something that is rooted in the Dharma and practice, but it brings it into the 21st century. There's another piece. I have 3 documents here. There's another one here where 学佛做人，人道尽，佛道成。君子务本，本立而道生。孝悌也者，其为人之本乎？ Right. I introduce the idea of traditional Confucian, but then at Tiananmen Guangchang, right, 六四时间, Li Peng says, 无逆不孝. And he says, all of you young people are being unfilial. 你们要听话. And because they didn't obey, he called the tanks out. Now, we can't talk about that. I'm sorry if this gets blocked tonight. But in China, I know a lot of people, and in Taiwan, who say, 笨孝,愚孝, stupid filiality, ignorant filiality. Who wants that? So it is not the case that everybody, because you're Chinese, you understand filiality. I'm suggesting that Master Xuanhua, who came from a line of Xiaozi, Master Empty Cloud, Master Changren, Master Changzhi, the Buddha himself, all practiced filiality, that this is really where our particular line begins. So it's important for us to figure out how to introduce this idea so it's not 愚孝,笨孝, 慈孝. It's not just 听话. It's way more than that. And it is the foundation that leads to great compassion. So that's what I wanted to share tonight. See what you think. Gives me some feedback and see if this works. If it doesn't work, we'll go somewhere else. We've got lots of choices here. Okay? How? I didn't ask for questions tonight because I filled up the time with this essay. But I think it's, I'd like also people online, if you can give me feedback on what you think about these ideas. Alrighty. Can we do a Medicine Buddha mantra tonight and let this, send this sound out to the world? There is a lot of pain ahead in America. The United States has a lot of hard times coming ahead. So we've got some music later on this week that we'll use to help to address that. And this Medicine Buddha mantra is one of those. We'll do 3 times. Here we go. Make a wish. Send it out. samyak sambuddhaya bhagavata saji saji saja sankate swaha. We will conclude by bowing. You can bow right from where you're sitting, right there. Here we go. Yi Wenxun. Second bow. Zai Wenxun. Sam Wenxun. Third bow. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. Okay, everybody get some good rest tonight. Get ready for tomorrow's repentance liturgy. For those of you listening online, we'll see you all tomorrow. 好的，大家早一点睡哈，就好好休息，明天再来拜忏啊！明天再见啊！阿弥陀佛，拜拜now。